The internet is cracked, the show that asks the question, can we coexist with our creation?
Hello, I am Seth Camillo.
And I am Caroline Risberg, and we are The Internet is Cracked by Addicts for Addicts.
And today we are so very lucky. We are speaking with Dr. Taha Yasseri, Professor of Technology and Society and Director of the Joint Center for Sociology of Humans and Machines at Trinity College, Dublin. He researches how large-scale data, collective intelligence, and machine-human systems reveal both surprising patterns and deep inequalities in how science and tech interact. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Yasseri.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. So I'm going to actually start asking the first question. And so, how do bots operate on the web, and what are they? So, for example, when we were researching about you, we found out that you have found out, like, for example, Wikipedia is showing unexpected conflicts among bots. So, how can you talk about this? Can you explain
Sure.
this for us, please?
Absolutely. Well, bots are nothing but pieces of algorithm, computer codes that
Mm.
are assigned different tasks. Of course, these tasks could be very simple, very repetitive, or as we have become better and better to teach machines to do more complex stuff, these bots also have become more sophisticated and they can do more complicated things. The ones particularly, I mean, you brought up Wikipedia off the bat. It's a very good example because 10 years ago, the bots who would be editing Wikipedia editors would be doing, fixing commas, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, uh, unifying the spelling conventions, things like that. Not very complex or smart. And they really didn't need to be intelligent back then. But they were very good because they could do these things continuously without getting tired and systematically, things that are not very easy for us humans to do. We get bored very quickly and we need to sleep. Uh, Today, of course, bots have also improved the same way that every other technology that has been affected by advancements in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Yesterday, I was reading an article how language models are being used by Wikipedia editors now to improve the quality of the content of the encyclopedia, which is a very interesting issue in itself because, as you perhaps know, language models are heavily trained on content of encyclopedias like Wikipedia, and now people are using these language models to write and edit articles on Wikipedia. So we might end up in a circle. But that's a different topic. To answer your question, bots are just pieces of algorithm. In that project, however, what we found and it was fascinating was that we saw conflict and disagreements among these bots that were programmed to do rather simple things on Wikipedia, but because the programmer or the person who was in charge of running these bots, different people are in charge of different bots, they might have different ideas and different opinions, how to name places, how to write things. And we found out that these bots collectively are not as efficient as we expect, even though they share a common goal and they are working towards the same project. When it comes to social media, let's say X, as a prime example, where also bots are very active.
Yes.
There, they don't share the same goals, or they have very different incentives. So we expect even to see more clashes and more conflict among these artificial agents that are acting on our behalf.
So when I think about bots, when I hear that term, people say it, I think about like a fake human, because that's the way it's used in the news, right? They say that, there's bots on X, there's bots. It is, but I guess that's just the complexity of the code. How would my question might be, how would you see conflict between bots? How would that be observed?
Yeah.
Well, there are two questions here. First of all, if bots necessarily need to be like humans, that's a very interesting point because I said, one of the features of bots is that they can do repetitive things non-stop. But this is a very non-human feature, right?
Yes.
So on Wikipedia, this is not an issue because bots who edit Wikipedia articles are not hidden. They are actually flagged as bots. They are named as bots. Like for many years, I was running a bot myself on Wikipedia, and it was called AdlerBot. There is no reason to hide that identity. But on Twitter, if I'm pretending to be a human, or an account is pretending to be a human, organic human account, whereas in the backend it is a bot, then it has to pretend and it has to look like and behave like a human. Because
Oh.
it doesn't want to be detected. And for instance, I remember 15 years ago, the first step to make them more like humans was to introduce circadian patterns. If an account is posting 24 hours or with a similar pace over the time of the day,
Yeah.
that first give away that I am not a human.
Yes.
Of course, that was the first step. And now the bots on the internet, on social media, and elsewhere. I was reading about bots on OnlyFans the other day. They do very complex things, and they have to look more and more like humans if the goal for them is to convince someone that, hey, you're talking or you're interacting with a human. But not all the bots have that goal or intention necessarily.
So OnlyFans
Oh.
is a I guess a semi-pornographic site or something, but it relies on their pay relies on interaction. So is it the account holder that is creating bots or requesting bots to come to their site, or is it how are they who wants bots on OnlyFans, I guess would be my question.
I like how quickly we ended up talking about this, but it usually, it usually takes me longer. But one of the many services that the service providers and OnlyFans offer is private chats. Okay, and the users, the those clients who pay for the services expect to be chatting directly to the star that they are interacting with. However, you can imagine if I'm a popular star, I might be have received many requests for the private chats that I cannot really accommodate. So what I can do is to hook up my account with a language model like ChatGPT and get the client to have these conversations, erotic or otherwise, with ChatGPT, and I collect the money, and they can have the conversation.
Talk
There
to.
is a nuance to that
Oh.
because ChatGPT, for example, is not. It has all the layers and filters, for example, to avoid eroticism. But there are similar services and technologies that can have those conversations on behalf of a star, and then and of course the ethical aspect of it is very questionable, right?
Well, I was
Because
about to say, I
But
don't know who
yeah.
to feel bad for, the client or the or the star in this case. I don't know,
But could
but
it also make like a fake AI person and a bot, like I don't know how to I don't know not much about this platform. But I mean, can it also be like a deep fake created person and a bot would have
yeah, in theory, of course, I can create a whole persona. It's
uh-huh.
so easy now, right? It was a big challenge 5 years ago, but today you don't need to be a programmer or know much about machine learning or generative AI. You just can create this persona. How successful it would be on a website like OnlyFans, I'm not sure because they take a lot of measures to verify and sort of fact checked or check the
Mm.
content on the website. But on many other platforms, I think it's super easy to come up with this persona, and you can come up with a whole story. Uh, in that direction, a few years ago, a few colleagues used a similar approach to collect data for research on Tinder, and that was a very questionable piece of research, right? Because they created
Oh.
accounts, fake accounts, and they automatized them. There was no human behind them, and for them, that was actually an ethical way because they didn't want any human to human interaction. But then the participants or the users that they were collecting the data of, on the other end, did not know that they're interacting with, pieces of
Oh.
algorithm or codes.
Oh.
That was a very heated discussion because they were saying, "Oh, that we designed the conversations not to lead anywhere, not to give any promises, but where do you draw the line? Even
Right.
if I fake swipe or a like on my profile from a machine, this is already an ethical challenge because then the machine ghosting on me might affect my mental health condition and so on and so forth." But
Yeah.
my point is that it's very easy to set up these bots now, particularly with the advancements of generative AI, and pretend to be human. Having said that, there are lots of other things that bots could do for us that are very useful. And as I
Yeah.
said earlier, it's not the only goal for a bot to pretend to look like a human.
So you talk about, just to switch gears just a little bit, algorithms and political speech, and
Mm.
that's kind of bots at a larger scale, or taking outside of a bot, the algorithmic mixture that sort of affects political speech in general.
Let's take a few steps back and go, let's say, to early 2000s when social media platforms appeared and online politics and online political activism. And back then, there was a large group of commentators, politicians, policymakers, researchers who thought that, oh, this is not a real thing. Politics needs sweat and blood, and it happens on
Mm.
the streets or in the parliament, and whatever you do online is online. I very well remember the real world and the online world, and these two were very different things when you were talking
Mhm.
to a political scientist who was trained in 70s and 80s. Gradually, people realized our social media platforms are playing bigger and bigger role, and then come 2010, 2012, the Arab Spring appeared, and that was the first time that people were crediting social media for positive change and bringing democracy to Middle Eastern
Mhm.
countries and so on and so forth. We got very excited. We thought Mark Zuckerberg perhaps is the next person to receive the Nobel Peace Prize because
Right.
the tools that Twitter and Facebook are providing normal citizens like people, a layperson on the street, to have a voice and to challenge the authoritarian powers is leading to big changes.
Yes.
But then things
Mhm.
start to take a sort of sinister turn around 2015. I think the first big example was how the Conservative Party in the UK used Facebook advertisement for the campaign, which was already questionable. And then the fake news and misinformation based campaigns became commonplace. Then Brexit happened. Then the first election of Donald Trump happened. We started to think, oh, this social media thing is too wild and to
Mhm.
be reliable. And of course, it was great when people were using this freedom and this openness to challenge
Mhm.
non-democratic powers. But then the very same openness could lead to spread of misinformation, could lead to a spread of conspiracy theories. I think the turning point, at least for me, as a normal person, was the invasion of the capital, the invasion of the center of democracy. That was a very pivotal, based on conspiracy theories that were
Mm.
circulating in relation to the election, the U.S. election in 2020 and 2021.
Those conspiracy theories were being spread through social
Yeah.
media.
Exactly. So this is how politics, when you look at the last 20 years, politics has been going through a lot of changes. There were
Mm.
positive aspects as well. I think political participation is very much now depends on the person's personality rather than demographic. Let me explain that.
Yeah.
In 70s and 80s and in 90s, if you want to predict a person's political interest or chance of participation, you had to ask them, what's the level of education, how much money you make, what's your family name, what's your skin color. That
Mm.
pretty much predicts a person's participation, whether they would vote or not, and whom they would vote for. Today is very complex. This makes everything very difficult for political prediction and posters, but it also makes it very interesting because today, and this is based on research, my chance of participation in a political act very much depends on my personality traits. Am I introvert? Am I extrovert? Am I pro-social, pro-self, and so on and so forth? The skin color, the level of education, the level of income have very
Mm,
little to do. It makes politics much more unpredictable and exciting and open, but also it calls for a whole new political science to be developed. So I'm saying this just to say that the changes were not all necessarily negative. I particularly believe that the fact that we got free, we broke free from our demographic determination is a positive thing, but it's a new politics. So going back to your question, what it means having all these bots around and these algorithmic interventions around, what it means for
mm,
democracy, I think that's a very big question. I'm not gonna be able to answer it because again,
yeah,
if political debates and political deliberation could be encouraged or facilitated to using these tools, great. If I can be having a free conversation with someone in a different language online using a translator, a bot who translates our conversation, brilliant. But if the same technology is being used at mass to pursue and to manipulate people's ideas and opinions about certain things, of course, that's something we don't want because we believe that political persuasion should be based on authentic, free, and reliable information rather than
right,
fabricated information using technology.
right.
Well, that leads me to a question that do you believe what we see in these collective collaborative systems, Wikipedia, Facebook, all these where we all interact? Do you think we're seeing a mirror of society, or do you think it's distorted? Is this an accurate depiction of society, or do you think it's something of an aberration, a mirror that's been bent?
Well, I'm an academic, and we love to go for the third option, or it depends. Never to go answer, yeah. I d- but joking aside, I don't think it's supposed to be reflecting the society as a whole. It's part of it's an aspect, it's a dimension, aspect of our societal life, which is, of course, like any other dimension, is not the whole truth. So in a way, it is distorted. But if you only if you make the assumption that it has to be a perfect reflection of what the society is, you know, you can ask the same question about representative democracy. Our
Mm.
parliaments, are they true reflection of our societies? No, not really.
No,
We say representative democracy, but you have to have a degree to go to the parliament in almost every country, and not everyone in the society has a degree. Anonymity is a huge thing. Almost in no other walk of life you can be truly anonymized. Yet you can be truly anonymized online. Famously, you can be a dog online and no one would notice.
right,
And that itself introduces and creates a lot of artifacts. Most of them are negative, to be honest, this particular aspect, but also some positives. I can edit Wikipedia articles about very controversial issues completely anonymously and benefit from, the protection that my privacy will have. Yet I can also use my anonymity and engage in illegal activities online. Again, very classic academic statement, but any technology has its positive sides and its negative sides,
right.
and often these two are very close and connected.
So, what ethical responsibilities do researchers like yourself have when revealing how machine behavior can undermine human collaboration?
Quite a few things here. First of all, I'm a pro-technology person. I mean, I don't want to sound pessimistic about technology, even though I have a very critical view, like many of my colleagues. But I think the benefit of this critical view is only to improve and to develop technologies that are safer, more ethical, and more useful and more
Yeah.
beneficial. That's the common goal we have. We don't want to stop anyone from being creative and pushing the technology. Yet, we should admit what we have, like, for example, learned from past 20 years is that not necessarily everything exciting is good. Social media were very exciting, but
Right.
ended up
Right.
in a mess
Good.
that no one could really clear it up. And by no one, I sometimes mean no one, Elon Musk has been trying, and I may or may not like him as a person, but I know he wanted to save Twitter, save X, but it's not easy to get rid of misinformation. Even if let's assume that's the
Yeah.
common goal we have.
Yeah.
Logically, it's a difficult problem to solve. So there are lots of new aspects that we not necessarily think about as humans when we get excited about a new tool, a new technology. It's the same. Artificial intelligence and AI, very exciting. There are so many different aspects of it that are completely unknown to us. And you mentioned one thing could be how AI and deployment of artificial intelligence affects our behavior
Hmm.
in interaction with AI, but also among ourselves, the way that we interact with one another. Let me give you an example. When we are interacting with intelligent machines or machines that are very well designed and well developed to mimic human behavior, often we do this thing that is called anthropomorphism.
Mm-hmm.
That is to
Hmm.
assign human-like features to the machine.
I do that.
Right.
We all do. I mean, it's not you and me. Ancient Greeks did it, right? When they talk about the god of this and the god of that, and these gods have
Right.
human features, gender, families, and so on and so forth. Few thousand years forward, you are interacting with ChatGPT and you think of it as a human. You are polite to it. You refer to
Yeah.
it as she or he, sometimes accidentally, sometimes intentionally. ChatGPT
Right.
doesn't necessarily have gender, manifested gender. I mean, there is a voice. The voices have some gender signals, but if you are using the text-based interface, no one tells you it's a man or a woman. But research shows 70% of people assume or assign a male
Hmm.
like gender to ChatGPT. Depending on what you do, if you use it for certain tasks, you are more likely to think of it as a man. For certain other tasks, you'd be more likely to think of it as a woman. But rarely people think of ChatGPT as an object, genderless object. But then
That's
there are
very
easier
interesting.
cases. Alexa, Siri, they all have female voices, female names, and so on and so forth. This sounds like a simple, tiny design decision. Okay, I have produced this tool and I want to market it. It's easier to sell it if I give it a cute name. Some research suggests people interact with machines better or more efficiently if it has some female-like features. Big question mark. I don't agree with that, but some research suggests that. But then the consequences are massive. You might sell a few more products and your customers might be a bit happier to interact with the product if it has a female voice or name. But then the way that we develop the habit of interacting with these machines can seriously affect the way that we interact with other humans.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
ran a series of experiments. We got people to interact with, to play a game in which they could either defect, deceive the partner, and take home more money, or they could collaborate with the partner and sort of split the money. Let's keep it as simple as that. Then the partner could be a human or a machine, human or AI, and with different gender identities. For humans, it was easy. We would say this partner that you're playing with identifies as such and such. For the machine partner, we would say, oh, this AI that you're playing with is trained on the data coming from women or men or different gender identities. In the background, there was neither human nor machine. in the background, they were playing with a random generator. The decisions were made random because we wanted to see how people's behavior changes based on this assumption they make about the partner. And we saw that people abuse or exploit the partner a lot more frequently if they were told that the partner is female.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise us. We have lived with
No, it
others.
doesn't surprise me, but yes,
The
no.
surprising part was that the gender bias or the discriminatory behavior was amplified when you looked at AI partners. People discriminated female AI a lot more than male AI. And then you say, oh, hang on. So making Siri a woman is not a little design decision. It's perhaps based on this assumption and notion that, oh, I want to be able to exploit and abuse my assistant. So if it has a female voice, I feel more comfortable doing that. But more importantly, this exploitive behavior can become a habit, can become a commonplace. And we just started to, fix this problem that we have had for several thousand years uh, to get rid of gender-based discrimination. My worry is that reintroduction of these aspects in a human AI interaction could push us back to where we were, not long time ago, where it was okay to be exploitative and discriminative against female humans.
Wow. And especially being a woman to just, wow. Okay.
Let me give another example.
Yes,
We,
please.
we ran another series of experiments in which three people, like imagine the three of us,
Yeah.
had to work together and solve a puzzle together. Okay. Very good. And then we told our participants that a manager is watching you. And by the end of the game, 3 minutes later, the manager is selecting one of us for a promotion to get a slightly more reward, a bit more payment. Good. And then we were asked to evaluate this manager, how fair they were, how competent they were, etc., etc. Before we played the game, we were asked to evaluate manager based on their gender and whether the manager could be human or machine. People showed very little preference. Basically, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, on average, people said, I think a human manager or a female human manager is 7 fair and 7.2 competent. All the scores were around 7 for some reason. But then we played this game, and then one of us is selected by this manager. And then we were asked the same question. Now evaluate this particular manager that you had. If I'm selected as the best player among the three, of course, my evaluation becomes more positive. And the other two players who go home empty-handed, their evaluation goes down. One important, crucial point, the decisions were random. Okay, one of the players was chosen completely at random because, again, we wanted to see how people react to these decisions. If I wasn't selected by a manager who is male, human, I would be much less harsh in my evaluation compared to the same decision coming from a female AI manager. People were outraged when they were not selected and the manager was female AI. They scored low them on incompetent, they scored them low on competence, on fairness, etc., etc. The very same decision coming from a male human manager was much more acceptable. And people felt, yeah, maybe I just didn't deserve it. Again, the gender-based discrimination against your manager has been studied. What is worrying and what is new here is that not only it extends to managers that are not human anymore, but also these gender-based discriminations are amplified.
So you're saying that we all know the world is sexist, but the world of being an AI is even more sexist, is what you're saying.
That's what our data and our research showed, that all the sexist behavior we have observed are amplified when we are interacting with an AI. So that's one problem. But going back to Caroline's question, the problem of being sexist towards AI has very little ethical bearing. because after all, it's a machine.
Yes.
The main concern is that how this will affect the way I
Mm.
behave and interact with other humans down the road, a couple of years, 10 years from now.
Um,
Would this interaction with machine, with this amplified discriminatory behavior I have, would it also affect my behavior with other humans? Would the discriminations that we just started to recognize and occasionally get rid of, maybe interaction with AI will bring them back?
This seems somewhat related to, and I don't know that there's any studies done on it. I'm sure there are, but that discourse has become less pleasant between people because of the training we get on social media. It seems to be related in some way, that dealing with um things that don't seem real can end up having an effect on the real world.
Absolutely. I mean, a very, very easy example is language. If
yeah.
I say BRB, you'll know that's what I mean, right? If I say LOL, these are simple examples how things that were originally defined in a specific context, in a specific platform, have entered the language, and we use them way beyond the realm or the area of that platform. Hashtag technology. You all know what I mean, and
Yeah.
we are not
Yeah.
using hashtag in this conversation. So these are simple examples just to illustrate the point that you are making. Yes, absolutely. This is the example of language is at the level of surface level and artifacts, but this transformation, this transition or migration could happen also at the behavioral level or conceptual level.
Um,
Some of the things that we developed and we will develop in interaction with machines could easily transfer to other walks of life. And while ethically might be acceptable to do certain things when we are interacting with machines, surely the same behavior won't be acceptable when we are interacting with other humans.
right. Yeah. This is actually very scary to listen to in one way. Like, how is there any way that we? No, I mean that is, I guess, how we are as humans, right? It's they interact a certain way, and it's more okay to discriminate, to be angry to a woman than to a male, right?
Well, in a way, it is part of this is intrinsic to us. Yeah, anthropomorphism is a feature we have. Yeah, we have had. This is in our let's say fabric. But then there are things that we can do differently. For instance, why do I need to assign a gender or a gendered feature to a machine? Uh, I can do the same thing without anthropomorphizing
Right.
the design of my product. Particularly if it's not necessary for the function of that product. The answer often is just marketing and marketing alone, but that's not a very convincing answer. Uh, I was talking to a company that I cannot name, but this company, let's say, is developing its own AI agent. It's an
Mhm.
assistant,
Mhm.
and I met them about the same time that they were making these decisions how to name this AI agent, and then I talked about my work and how gender labels could be not
Mhm.
necessarily helpful. And they were like, oh, we were completely ignorant towards this fact. And
They ignore it. They ignored it.
ignore, yeah. And they showed me like the top 10 names that they were considering. All of them were female. And I was like, and this is an area of work that is female dominated. Already there are stereotypes, there are issues, there are abusive behavior in that area of work. And I was like, think about it. I'm not saying let's give a male name because that might also backfire, but why do you even need to give a name to this product that
Yeah.
gender signal in it? Just go for a genderless name. And there were curiously listening to me. I don't know what they did at the end. I will figure it out. But what I'm trying to say is that some of these decisions, some of these fixes are easy. And most companies, I believe, I'm an academic, and you might assume that I hate private sector, but I don't, because my wife works in private sector and she pays the bills. And I know that these companies, most of them, majority of them, are very ethically conscientious and ethically, they have high standards. But sometimes the problem is the disconnect and the sort of gap between science and
Mm,
practice, and that's what I'm
mm,
trying to bridge as well. Because when they know that the decisions that they make could have consequences, big consequences, then they will be more careful with those decisions.
They say, oh, first person shooter games, lead to more violence outside of the computer world. And so these are very interesting ideas that you're saying that it may have real world impact, what you name it, how the voice is, etc., is a very interesting idea.
Yeah. And, sort of circling back to the question you had about, bots pretending to be humans, I
mm.
can understand why a bot on Twitter or X has to pretend to be human, because it doesn't want to get caught, let's say. But not
Yeah,
all the bots or agents or AI agents we are designing need to look like humans. And
Yeah.
as I said, don't make it look like a human unless you absolutely need to do that, because the consequences are unknown. Some of them we have started to learn and understand, but many of them we might not even think of at the moment. And again, these are machines. We shouldn't forget a machine learning algorithm has nothing to do with
right.
human agency, with human responsibility. All those things that make us human, none of them exist for a machine. Doesn't matter how good that machine can write a poetry or can generate an image. That doesn't make the machine a human, or how good that machine is in remembering information. And those are none of the things that make us a human. And we should really clear we should really and clearly draw this boundary, because
Yeah,
if we don't, just for the sake of marketing, try to convince the customers and clients that, I'm selling you humans. I mean, I can stop this sentence already. I don't even need to explain what's the problem with this. But
Yes.
sometimes we are doing this because it's just more marketable.
yeah. We need to make it. This is a machine. This is all it is.
You receive an advice as a teenager, you receive an advice from ChatGPT, what's the best way of committing suicide, and then the disaster happened, the tragedy happens, and of course we blame the company. Sure, let's do that, but also think what else contributed to this misperception of
Hmm.
this machine has the potential of being your best friend, or has the potential of being your therapist.
I see people. I've never interacted with a robot um, myself, but I've seen a lot of videos of people interacting with robots. I guess I don't know if they're remote controlled or they're autonomous or not, but people are oftentimes rude to the robot, and um I find that to be odd. It's off-putting, but why is it off-putting? It's just a piece of metal and servo motors. I'm not sure why that bothers me so much and concerns me. It concerns me.
I thought, well, there are two layers. I think it bothers you because of that anthropomorphism. Because even though we know that it's a piece of metal, we sort of assign this wholeness to this object, and it bothers us when we see that it's mistreated. Okay, but this
Mm,
doesn't hold in the court. You cannot sue someone for being rude or being abusive to a machine, at least now. But then the other layer of concern, and that's, I think, what we have been discussing, is that, okay, if I'm rude, if I get into the habit of being rude or physically abusive to a machine, it's very easy to imagine that this sort of drips into my behavior with other humans. I
right.
I'm very polite when I'm interacting with ChatGPT in a way, in a stupid way, because it's a machine as well, right? But I say thank you and please and so on.
I do
I need
too.
Yeah, me,
Great.
me too.
I do. I said, please, thank you. Sorry, I should have.
But you can try. ChatGPT does the same job if you are extremely rude to it. Okay. And that might be fun to do once or twice. But then
No.
imagine that becoming a habit, and then
Yes.
out of the sudden
Yeah.
you use the same tone interacting with a colleague. Then the problem is there.
Yes.
So these are all pointing to the same direction, that technology is great, it's improving, it is doing great things that only humans used to be able to do. But the boundary between human and machine should be very clear. At the discourse level, at the design level, at the policy level, at the
Mm.
regulation level, at all levels, we should know what is human and what is machine, and the difference between these two entities are massive.
So to round it off, I want to ask you, do you think regulation of bots, especially across different cultures and platforms, is realistic or even desirable?
I think regulation is desirable and is realistic, but it has to be at a whole different level. I don't think regulation can look into the details of what is done, what is the use case, what is the function. And policymakers are busy individuals, and technical knowledge needed for these detailed decisions might not be available to them. But we should come up with regulatory frameworks
Mm.
that could be applied and that could be followed in different cases by practitioners, by people who have the technical knowledge. The EU AI Act, for instance, was a very good first step. In fact, I found it too general and too sort of light on certain aspects. But it was something that we thought it could never happen. Who can regulate AI? We don't know much about AI, and that is very true. But AI Act, again, I'm not a huge fan of it, but to be honest and to be fair, I think that's the type of framework, regulatory framework, that can be used in further developing the more detailed regulations. GDPR is a good example. We all hate, answering those questions and closing the pop-up windows asking us about our consent on GDPR. But it's a rather generic framework that then was implemented in different walks of life, and we all feel a little bit more comfortable with our data now. At least, when we share the data with the bank, we know that it doesn't end up in the hospital or the other way around. There have been regulatory successes or success stories that I think could inspire our steps forward towards having regulatory frameworks.
And could you just quickly define the GDR?
GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, was a regulatory framework developed in the EU. It has been existing for several decades in different forms and shapes, but due to the surge of big data and the data that we were generating on digital platforms, it became much more effective in the past decade. And from the time that you could buy and sell individuals browsing data on the internet, we have arrived to the point that companies cannot keep your data for no good reason. They have to give you the
Mm.
right to delete your data, to have a copy of your data. Companies cannot share data. Different organizations cannot consolidate data in one place. All these regulatory consequences are protecting the citizens. And you talked about geography. GDPR is a European
Hmm.
framework, okay? But successfully, it has affected US-based companies
Yes.
because they
Yeah.
provide services to EU citizens, and any company that provides services to EU citizens has to adhere. And therefore, US-based companies also change their practices and their workflow. That's another example how we can regulate technology beyond geography.
So we can thank
Mm.
you for helping us out a little bit.
Well, not me, but yeah. I see your point. Yeah, there are some good things happening this side of the ocean as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so very much. This has been extremely enlightening.
Yeah,
Thank,
thank you.
thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It
thank
was a
you so much. Thank you.
All right, goodbye.
bye bye.
Thank you for watching or listening to The Internet is Crack. Tune in next week when we have another great conversation about robotics, AI, and the internet. You can watch us or listen to us on YouTube or Spotify or many other outlets. And don't forget to follow us on social media. See you next Monday.